Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of Random Vlogging! First things first, I know my hair is crazy right now. I literally just woke up a little while ago, and the stuff I want to talk about today, I just read no more than maybe 20 or 30 minutes ago. And this is something that is really important to me. That's something that I really, really need to talk about. So I don't look prettyful or anything like that. I just look kind of crazy. Deal with it. All right. So what we're going to talk about today, class, Geek Sundry. For those of you that have been watching for a while, you know that this channel started, the very first episode of anything on this channel was my audition, pilot episode type thing of a show that is currently on hiatus called Training Day, where I talked about training techniques and things like that because that's what I'm geeky about. I love training people. I love teaching people new things. Like, that is my jam. And so that's what I did for Geek and Sundry's Vlogs channel, is what I was trying to get in. I didn't even make it to the second round. The video itself, if you guys want to go back and watch it, it's bad. Yeah, I understand why I didn't make it through, but to me, and I've talked about this before, that was one of the most important things that Geek and Sundry did, because the reason they're as popular and have such a great community that they have now is a direct result of the Geek and Sundry Vlogger search. They created a community through that I don't think they could have anticipated, and it has bled through into everything that they do. All of the most important, amazing people in Team Human, in the Critters, they can all generally trace their roots back to the Geek and Sundry Vlogger search, either watching or participating in. So today, Geek and Sundry made an announcement that they are basically rebranding. Which isn't a horrible thing. Rebranding is a very common thing, especially when a company grows and changes as much as Geek and Sundry has. When Geek and Sundry first launched, they were basically Tabletop, The Guild, and then a few other shows. I don't think any of those original shows exist anymore. And they continued to grow and do all these things. And their most recent branding, and I'm going to actually see if I can find Geek and Sundry. I want the... come on, where are you? There it is. Welcome to New Thing. I will have a link to it in the doobly-doo, so you guys can read the actual announcement and everything like that. But for right now, they basically... are rebranding. They have a new logo, which is basically a D20 with I don't know, directional pad in the middle of it. And they went from pure green. Green was their overall color scheme. It was this really kind of bright lime green color. They've added blue to it. So with the rebranding, the website reflects their new colors. They have their new logo up. And they talk about how this is a more accurate representation of what they've become and blah, 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 blah. I want to talk about that specifically because this kind of proves the trend that I've been seeing for a long time now. And to me personally, this is a negative trend for them. Again, this is my personal opinion, and I'm going to understand the thought process behind this and why it actually makes sense to them. I'm just disappointed in it because what Geek and Sundry was originally founded for is starting to go away. And for me, that's a little bit upsetting and sad. So anyway, the reason they're going to this is, to be blunt, the reason that they're going to this new logo is they want to emphasize what it is that they do, which is gaming. Geek and Sundry has become a gaming channel, and that's what it is. If you look at Geek and Sundry Live, which is what they call their Twitch channel, Geek and Sundry Live is entirely gaming because it's on Twitch, and Twitch is about gaming. Even the ungaming things that they had, things like Minds and Crafts, had creative aspects to it. They threw that away, and now they focus almost exclusively on gaming. The only show they still have that doesn't have an exclusive gaming focus is what is it? The one that Amy Dowland and Hector do, where they basically read scripts of comic book stuff. And that basically came from a segment they used to do on the poll. They just turned that into the entire show because it was popular. That is the only non-gaming content they have anymore. If you look at the Geek and Sundry the Geek and Sundry YouTube channel, it is Tabletop, Co-optitude, Spell Slingers, if and when that comes back. All of these are gaming related. Tabletop gaming, yes, but they're all gaming related. LARPs, the series, is the other kind of category of content they get, which is basically they are a YouTube channel that is syndicating programming. For those of you that are unfamiliar with what syndication is basically where a television show is shot, recorded, and everything like that without being paid for by a specific television channel, and then they sell that television show to a channel. And that's how it works. Star Trek The Next Generation was syndicated. A lot of the shows, syndication is not quite as popular as it used to be because of web series and things like that. But yeah, they have a production company that creates a television show, and then they sell that to television stations. And you'll normally have what's called first-run syndication, which is the first person to buy it pays not only for the show, but for exclusivity rights so that only they can watch it. The Big Bang Theory has become syndicated because you can now watch it on TBS and a bunch of other things. And this is very, very common. Once a show hits about 100 episodes, they normally start looking into syndication because it's a great way for them to make more money. That's what the Geek and Sundry YouTube channel has basically become. Their original content is entirely gaming related, and then anything else that they have is syndication. Their newest thing that they're doing, which I can't remember what it's called, but it's got the guy, Ballard, I think was his name, from Dollhouse, who I think is a great actor, and I think it looks really cool. But it's a syndicated, like it came out in 2015, and now they've purchased the rights to it so they can put it on their YouTube channel. And that's basically what they're doing. The stuff that they create is entirely gaming related now. The reasons behind this are fairly obvious. They're their most popular items that they make, and they make a lot of money off of it. I mean, look at the fact that Tabletop Season 3 raised over $1.4 million for something that didn't exist. It was just crowdfunding for $1.4 million. Like, that's insane. That's a ton of money. Generally, if you were to try and get that kind of money for like a pilot or a television show, which is still, it's massively low for what they do, what they pay for like a television show or something like that. But generally, to get that kind of money, the people giving you that money, the investors, would have a massive amount of control over the show that you make. That's how it works in traditional media. The fact that none of the people that were giving all of this money got to exercise creative control over it is insane and wonderful and amazing. If you look at their Twitch channel, they've recently reached over 15,000 subscribers. They are, my understanding is that when you become a partner and can start accepting subscriptions and stuff like that, you are actually contractually obligated to not talk about how much of that money you actually get to keep. And it's basically a way for them to be able, for Twitch to be able to negotiate different royalty rates for different channels, depending on basically how useful they are to Twitch. It's a very common business practice. It's not illegal in this particular sense. In the employment world, it's under argument right now. But the base rate for most of these things is a 50-50 cut. Twitch keeps 50% of what you make, you keep 50%. So even if we, and I think we can pretty safely assume that they probably have a better cut than that, but let's go with the base and say, you know, that if you take 15 thousand multiply by 250. You're talking about on a monthly rate, they're making $37,500. You multiply that by 12. They make just off of subscriptions. This has nothing to do with the numbers they make off of ads. This has nothing to do with the numbers they make when they put it on their YouTube channel, when they put it onto the website. Just off of subscriptions alone, the Geek and Sundry channel probably makes more than, again, these are imaginary numbers. I don't know their actual numbers, but they probably make more than $450,000 a year just from that. And that goes directly to everything from paying salaries for actors, paying for studio space, electricity, all that stuff. Like, it's really expensive to run something like that. So a $450,000 operating budget is not actually outside the realm of reason. They're still making profit off of just that. Yeah, so we've got that. To put that in perspective, I helped design the budget for a theater. After factoring in actor salaries and everything like that, I think our original budget for our first year for a theater that was doing, I think, 5 productions, that had to deal with royalties and paying actors who you pay remarkably higher than other things, and factoring in that we were going to be offering housing to the actors so we could recruit talent from out of town. I think our first budget was like $1.2 million for a year for running an entire full theater. That was everything: utilities, zoning. I think that even included some of our building costs. So $450,000 for a channel. They're still making money off of that, in my personal opinion. They may not be. We don't know how much Legendary takes from that or anything like that. You know, that's. I'm just saying the raw numbers for that. So it makes sense. The reason I'm talking about all this, it makes sense for them to focus on the things that are making them the most money. From a business perspective, that not only is smart business, that's necessary business. If you're constantly doing things that you're not making a return on investment from a business perspective, your business is going to fail. It's just how it works. So again, I understand the thought process behind it, and I can support their decision with money and numbers, and the rebranding and everything makes perfect sense from a business standpoint. And I will 100% guarantee Legendary had a hand in at least suggesting that this is the direction that they really need to go. Again, this is a business decision, and it is a beautifully perfect business decision. They are able to target more specifically a market that's making them a lot of money. They are able to focus on specific things that are going to give them a much better return on investment. Like the business reasons for this are astronomical. However, the original founding of Geek and Sundry was done under the YouTube channel's initiative, and it was basically a place where Felicia Day could do the things that she wanted to do without having to deal with kind of the business aspect of exactly what I described, without having to target a specific market. She could do the things that she was passionate about, and she could encourage other people to do the things that they were passionate about. And the same, and that was the reason why the Geek and Sundry vlog search happened. One of the kind of mantras about it was being a geek is not just about comic books or video games or something like that. Being a geek is about whatever you get passionate about. That's being a geek, is getting passionate about things to a point that almost seems a little bit silly to people that don't understand. And that's why the Geek and Sundry vlogs, they had 2 broke geeks, which were, you know, people that were trying to do geeky things on a budget. They had Dale Kingsmill, who did mythology stuff. You had Scott, who was doing retro games. You had Sachi, who was doing cosplaying. You had just a ton of different things. I mean, you had Vaughn and Songs for Adventure. I can't remember both of their names now, but they were amazing. And they were music geeks that had kind of a geeky theme of video game themes and stuff like that. Like, all of these things were so widespread. You had beauty geeks and and just so many widespread different things. And if you looked at the entire entry from everybody, you had everything from TV show geeks. Holland was a movie geek. Like, there was just so much to it. And it was just about being passionate about what you are passionate about, being proud of it. And that was, I think, the greatest thing about Geek and Sundry. That was why I was so passionate about supporting them, is because they were letting people be themselves, and they were kind of, as much as you don't really need the permission, they were giving people permission to be geeks about anything, as opposed to being a stereotype. Which is, I mean, look at the Big Bang Theory, look at Freaks and Geeks, look at anything like that. Geeks are a stereotype. And they basically fall into, basically one of three categories. You have your video game geek, you have your comic book geek slash nerd, and then you have your, and this is kind of a subset of the comic book geek nerd, you have your kind of tabletop geek nerd thing, where they'll play Magic the Gathering, or they'll play Dungeons and Dragons, and it's always a punchline. Geek and Sundry destroyed that. They showed that there are geeks that do everything. There are fitness geeks. The Mighty Jerd is probably one of my favorite people in the world. And he's a fitness geek. He gets geeky about fitness and martial arts, and just living a healthy lifestyle. And because of that, he's published 3 books. He does amazing, wonderful things. He has a YouTube channel that he hasn't put a ton on recently. He has a great blog that he writes. This is the thing that made Geek and Sundry Geek and Sundry. Now that they're shifting their focus almost exclusively to gaming, you can basically take geek out of the name. This is now Games and Sundry. Which, again, it's not a bad thing. I love Critical Role. I love Tabletop. I love Co-optitude. I spend so much of my time playing games. Without them, I would be a very, very different person. I'm now running 2 different campaigns semi-weekly, so almost every week, or actually every week, yeah, every week now, I'm running a D&D game. I drive 100 miles round trip every Wednesday night to go to my quote-unquote friendly local game store, which is not local at all for me, but it used to be when I lived in another city. So yeah, I drive 100 miles every Wednesday to go and play D&D with friends and help the store kind of grow and change. These are I love gaming, I really do, but there's so much more to being a geek than gaming. I'm still a training geek. As much as Training Day is on hiatus and has been for well over a year, I have the first episode planned, and I'm ready to write, or the first series of a new version of Training Day. I unfortunately have not had the time to create it because of school and work and everything else. But I'm still geeky about training. I still give tips on training. I still train people on a daily basis in everything from sales technique, interview technique, how to play new games, how to run, how to create content, all this stuff. Like, that's what I do, and that's what I love. And I consider myself a geek. According to the new focus of Geek and Sundry, I don't actually really fit in there anymore. Not that, not that I'm not a gamer or anything like that. I am. But that aspect of my geekiness has no place on Geek and Sundry anymore. And that's sad to me. And there's so many, like Dale Kingsmill. Again, beautiful, amazing, wonderful creator that makes engaging content over and over and over again. I love almost everything she does. She did this great Nuzlocke run that was just phenomenal to watch. Her mythology vlog is still going on, and it's still brilliant. She would have no place in the new Games and Sundry. Yes, she did. Technically, the Nuzlocke would work there. But beyond that, her mythology vlogs have no place in Games and Sundry anymore. And the same would be true for half of the old Geek and Sundry vloggers. 2 broke geeks would have to start focusing exclusively on gaming-related things and how to game on the cheap. Holland's vlogs would have to focus almost exclusively on video game themed movies, game themed movies, which is we basically have World of Warcraft and Dungeons and Dragons that are coming out. Beyond that, Pixels came out, and that was horrendous. Most of her vlogs would have no place in the new Games and Sundry. So yeah, I guess what I'm saying is, again, I can understand why it's doing this. They're focusing on their strengths, but to me, they're kind of breaking with what the original idea of the channel was, which was inclusivity and kind of giving people permission to be geeky about whatever it is that they're geeky about. Giving permission for geeks to be geeks. It's just not there anymore. And this has been a long time coming. To be perfectly honest, they have been Games and Sundry probably since shortly after the launch of the Twitch channel. That's why they got rid of the Vlogs Network, because again, it wasn't really making them, from a business perspective, it was probably costing them more than it was making them in views and things like that. So they got rid of it. They started the Twitch channel because Twitch is more stable, especially with subscriptions and things like that. Twitch is significantly more stable than YouTube will ever be, because the subscriptions auto-renew, and so with that, you can't really, you can actually count on that and budget from that. Video views and stuff like that is incredibly fluid, and you can't really count on people to watch any of your content the same amount, even the same content. Something like my Vox Machina in Dranglaic, the first one got about 26 views, which is okay. It's better than average for most of my videos. The second one got 6 views. And I marketed it the same way. It just didn't quite have the impact, and that's very common for YouTube. So I can understand why they're doing this. But to me, this is kind of the final nail in the coffin of the entity that used to be Geek and Sundry. Geek and Sundry is now entirely Games and Sundry, and for me, I'm sad about that. I really am. Geek and Sundry changed my life so much. The reason I'm a content creator is because of Geek and Sundry. The reason I have most of the friends that I have is because of Geek and Sundry. The reason I started playing D&D is a combination of Geek and Sundry and Acquisitions Incorporated. And to be perfectly honest, like, Acquisitions Incorporated inspired me. Geek and Sundry, and specifically Tabletop, gave me permission to do it. That's exactly what it was. My first campaign that I ever played in was a direct result of me watching Tabletop, getting a group of people together to play tabletop games, and then slowly using those tabletop games to introduce them to tabletop RPGs. We actually played Dragon Age, the RPG, as our first RPG, and then it transitioned to D&D, and it was amazing and awesome and fun. All of that is because Geek and Sundry gave me the permission to be the kind of geek I wanted to be. My emphasis on training, my chosen career field, I didn't really consider myself a trainer until I auditioned for the Geek and Sundry Vlogs channel, and now that's what I do. And it's amazing and it's wonderful. All of this is because Geek and Sundry was what they were. And I guess the biggest, disappointment I have about this is that people that come to Games and Sundry now are not going to see what I saw. They're not going, it's not going to have the impact on them that it had on me and literally countless other individuals. The friendships that I formed from the Vlogger Search and the New Vlogger Army and the All for Geek Alliance, these are people that have literally changed my life, turned me into a different person. And I would not be the person that I am today if it weren't for Geek and Sundry. And with their transformation into Games and Sundry, I don't see, like, if I get introduced to them now instead of when I originally got introduced to them years ago, I might still be working in retail. um, which I despised. I might not be getting the degree that I'm getting. I'm getting a degree in marketing management, um, specifically because of the development aspect built into management, and the creative aspect built into marketing. I wouldn't be doing that. 100% I wouldn't. I might still be miserable. I wouldn't have this outlet to be able to talk to you guys and give my opinions on things. I wouldn't have created anything for the Dragon Knight class. I wouldn't have. I wouldn't have become a dungeon master. I wouldn't have started going to conventions and things like that. I mean, these are major parts of my life that I just don't see Games and Sundry inspiring like it did with Geek and Sundry. So, yeah, that's my opinion. I'm not saying that I'm not going to support the new version of Geek and Sundry that I'm referring to as Games and Sundry. I'm still going to watch their Twitch channel as often as I can. To be perfectly honest, a lot of the content that I really enjoyed doesn't exist on there anymore. So I basically just tune in for Critical Role, and then whenever they're playing a game that I really enjoy. But I'm still going to be supporting them. I'm still a subscriber, and I'm not going to change that. I'm still going to be watching everything on their YouTube channel and everything like that. It's really sad that the entity that I fell in love with, that changed my life, this is kind of the final nail in this coffin. It's gone. The old Geek and Sundry is gone, and that's a normal thing. That Geek and Sundry, there's a chance that Geek and Sundry, like if nothing had changed, there's a very good chance that Geek and Sundry wouldn't exist anymore. Being purchased by Legendary let them be able to continue when YouTube stopped giving them funds to support their channel. They need money to be able to create content. They need money to be able to pay their actors, to pay everybody that works in their offices. I understand that. And I understand that, Games and Sundry is kind of a necessary change for them to continue to grow and create. And I'm not saying that they're not going to be able to continue to do great things and they're not going to be able to continue to inspire people. But that original feeling of inclusivity and that original inspiration that came about because of Geek and Sundry, in my personal opinion, is gone. And that's sad. Whether or not it was necessary, it's still sad. So yeah. Beyond that, like I said, not a whole lot else is going to change. This is where they're going, and whether I like it, hate it, whatever, this is the decision that they've already made, and it's a decision that makes sense, and has the opportunity for them to continue to grow and continue to create amazing content. So in that respect, I'm happy that they're able to go in a direction that means that they get to continue existing. It's just, I wish the original feeling and the original inspiration for this channel could survive. And again, in my personal opinion, it can't in this new format. It's not designed to. This is designed to capitalize on their strengths, which is never a bad thing, but that does mean that anything that they weren't doing super well is done. It's gone. And that's sad. So anyway, I know this is a really long one, but this is something that I am very passionate about, and I wanted to get my ideas and thoughts out there. So if you guys have opinions on it, feel free to leave it in the comments below. Like I said, I have depression. This may be my depression talking, and I may be going to a realm that I really don't need to with this and just overreacting. But for my own business sense and for my own creative aspects, this is what it seems like. And it's sad, but it's how it is. Geek and Sundry is now Games and Sundry. And while that's not a horrendous, horrible, disgusting thing, it's sad. So, yeah! That's all for me today. I will see you guys later tonight for some D&D. Kingdom of the Kale Isle starts at 8:30 p.m. Central Time tonight. So please tune in and watch twitch.tv/TraderJody. All right? Bye-bye!